New York, but spent most of my adult life here in Minnesota working. My career was with 3M, so that's my introduction. I'd like to tell you about an adventure I had in Costa Rica back in 2012. And I was fortunate enough to chaperone my daughter's 7th grade Spanish class. And so we left for Costa Rica in October on a Saturday, and I knew my son's 21st birthday was the following Wednesday, and I promised him I'd take him out for a drink when we got back. So there we go, introduction. We stayed in these darling huts in Costa Rica called, on a farm called Finca La Anita, and they were run by Ana and Pablo Cespedes. And they will come back, you'll hear about them later. So Ana and Pablo. They were open air huts, and it was in the beautiful lush grounds in the rainforest, and each day we would do an activity. So Wednesday, we were going to a volcano called Rincon de la Viejo. It's a national park, and we were going to go hiking there. And so we were going to hike 3 watering holes, a cold water, warm water, and hot water, and hike the volcano. And so several drivers came with their trucks, and we loaded the kids and chaperones and teachers, and drove to this volcano. When we got there, we hiked about 2.5 kilometers, about a mile and a half, down into the volcano area. And it were narrow paths. We had to go single file, and we had to cross streams, and there were steep portions, especially down to the watering hole. We were all wearing high rubber boots because there were poisonous snakes in the area. This was that watering hole, the cold water watering hole. It was absolutely gorgeous, and I remember asking Pablo, what's the Spanish word for heaven? Because I thought this was heaven. He said it was cielo, which means sky. So when we were leaving, we had to climb a steep incline, and Pablo went up a ways and would reach down and give him his hand and help you up the incline. Quite a few people had gone up already before me, and it was my turn. And I reached up and took Pablo's hand, and I heard someone yell. And then Pablo kicked his foot out. And the next thing I knew, this side of my face went black. My vision went black. And then on my right side, let's see, I started getting this effect. My vision was shrinking very quickly. More and more, and all the way down to a pinprick. And when it was getting really small, I remember thinking, if this goes out, I'm dead. And when it was happening, it was really weird because I could hear it. I could hear the sound of my vision going, or something happening in my head. It was going, and my vision got smaller and smaller. And I remember I woke up and asked what happened. And somebody said a rock had hit me on the head. It had rolled down the volcano and hit me on the head, excuse me. Well, back when I was in my 20s, I had been in an accident and had a fractured skull, and I thought, this feels kind of like a fractured skull. And so I thought I was going to die, but I was determined not to die in front of the kids, a bunch of 7th graders. I wasn't going to die in front of these kids. So I was taking 1 second at a time to try to take a breath and make sure I took one more breath, and I was alive, one more breath. My daughter later told me that there was blood everywhere, and there was blood pumping out of the top of my head, and it was a mess. Well, they had to get me out of there, and I was going in and out of consciousness, and so there were 2 guys, had one arm around one of the guy's shoulders, one arm around the other guy's shoulders, and then a 3rd guy held my legs. Pablo had brought a machete, So there was a fourth guy in the front who took the machete and widened the path all the way, so just so that three could walk across. There was one of the parents on the trip was Margaret, who was a pediatrician. So she took over trying to keep me conscious. She would talk to me and try to keep me as conscious as she could. We had to cross several streams. Some were across logs, and sometimes we had to cross where there were rocks, and we were 3 across. So the guys would drop my legs, and I could just see this pinprick, and they'd say, okay, move your right leg a foot to the right, and up a little more, and then we'd take a step and move and get across the stream or where the rock was. Meanwhile, the drivers, there were the parents and the other chaperones who were getting the kids out, and the drivers ran ahead to try to come up with a makeshift stretcher. And they came back with a tarp and some branches they had found they weren't straight, pine like telephone pole branches. They were wobbly branches, and they'd roll the tarp up and stuck me in there, and dropped me a few times on the way out. And of course, we were in the rainforest, so we had a downpour in the middle of this. Let's see. So we got back to the visitor center, and it was basically just a roof with some posts holding it up and some signs telling information. There was no staff there. It was just an open air visitor center. They put me on the ground, brought my daughter over because they thought I wasn't going to make it. They wanted her to be able to say goodbye to me. She didn't want to come over. She said I was too scary. I remember I told her that I would be okay. And then after she left, I thought, oh my gosh, the last thing I said to my daughter was a lie. So that was worrying me. So they loaded me into the back of an SUV and left to meet the ambulance. We finally met up with an ambulance. I don't remember any of the ride. Once they loaded me in the car, I don't remember anything. It took an hour and a half to get to the ambulance. And then they took me to a small rural hospital in Upala, and I just don't remember any of it. I remember waking up briefly when they were cutting my clothes off, but then I was out again. And so at that hospital, all they could do was to stitch me up. So I have what I call my Harry Potter scar. I've got a scar here, and then they stitched up my head. Excuse me. And meanwhile, Margaret had gone back to the Finca La Anita, and Pablo was staying with me. So he stayed in a hotel near the hospital. But Margaret was talking to Anna and saying, she's got to get a CAT scan. You got to get her to another hospital. So we get there. It's now Wednesday night. It happened about noon Wednesday. Thursday morning, I'm pretty much unconscious. I don't really remember any of it. Pablo comes in and wakes me up and says, can you get in this wheelchair? So he helped me into the wheelchair and wheeled me out to an ambulance and helped me get into the ambulance. I have no idea about the whole checkout process, but got in the ambulance, and he and Nurse Dunia, that was a nurse from the clinic, they drove me 2 hours to Liberia to a bigger hospital. And I remember thinking it was a half-hour drive. They said it was 2 hours, so I was probably passing out again. But Pablo had given me his phone, and I was able to talk to my husband for a few minutes. So we get to the larger hospital. Nurse Dunia, she helped me into a gurney. She found a gurney, helped me into a gurney, moved me to the front of the line in the emergency room, and then she defended my position there. We were told that people would come up and say, get to the back of the line, and she would go, and so she would tell them, you're not moving this lady. And these are some of the angels, Pablo, Ana, Nerstunia, my angels. And so meanwhile, Pablo is running the halls of the hospital trying to find a doctor that he knew to try to get me priority. And Ana was on the phone on the way to Nicaragua. Hang on, I gotta get a drink. Ana was on the way to Nicaragua with the rest of the group, and she was trying to reach this doctor on the phone too as they're traveling, just trying to get a hold of him. So finally I got into a CAT scan, and the radiologist's husband was an eye doctor, so she called him in to check out my eyes because I couldn't see. So a little while passes, and Pablo comes to me and says, you're going to have brain surgery. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I had used every ounce of strength, and I thought, I'm not going to survive this. I can't survive, brain surgery now. I had emptied all of my strength. And so I said, can you get me to the US? And he said, no, we can't. You can't fly. You've got to have brain surgery now. So I said, okay. And Pablo took out a paper and said, you have to sign this. Well, through my little pinhole, I scribbled something, and Pablo said he had to sign too. And remember, this is just a guy who's staying at the hotel that or this little inn, these huts that I'm staying in. And so he calls my husband again. I get on the phone, and I made that call that nobody ever wants to make, that you say, I'm not going to survive this. Goodbye. I love you. Take good care of the kids. So I made that call. And then they wheeled me into the operating room. And I think my doctor, my neurosurgeon, Dr. Viejo, I think he must have heard my call, because he came to me and said, he spoke English. The only people who spoke English were Ana, Pablo, and my neurosurgeon. He said, look, I'm a neurosurgeon and I'm good, so have some faith in me. So I thought, maybe I'm going to survive, you know. So surgery happens. I wake up Thursday evening, and I'm in a recovery room with, say, 20 beds, a lot of beds. And the nurses are all walking around full scrubs, you know, head coverings, face masks, booties, gloves, the whole bit. And so I was there Friday morning. I see this eye is starting to open, so I'm starting to see a little bit more. This one's still black, but this one's starting to open. So kind of a goofy nurse comes in, acting goofy, and comes over to me. It's Pablo. He knew a nurse and got a hold of the scrubs and snuck in to see me. And so he came in, he brought me my glasses, he brought my library book, and he gave me his chapstick. And so he came in then, and I was able to talk to my husband again, and he came in again on Saturday. And so Saturday evening, they finally moved me to a regular ward. And I was in the bed right across from the nurse's station. I was later told that was for the most critical patients. So they put me into that bed, and there were 2 other women in the room. And it was a room with windows that were about a foot wide all the way around the room. And it was kind of weird because the next room was a bunch of guys. And so, but you could see the whole ward that way. And one of the women in the room had terrible cold symptoms. And the other woman, I don't know what she had. She never really communicated. But nobody spoke English anyways. So I thought, okay, I went into the bathroom and I cried out because I looked like a monster. I had black eyes, and my head was shaved on one side, and I had tubes coming out of my head. And so I went back to my bed, and I thought about, okay, I'm in another survival situation. This is scary. And and I looked like a monster. I don't speak the language. I could easily become invisible with people. So I thought, what do I need? First thing, water. I need water. So I went to the nurse's station when I kept my high school broken Spanish, agua por favor. So they bring me this little Dixie cup of water. So, okay, I can get water. So then I thought food. I thought, no, you know, I can probably go about a month without eating, and I'm going to be okay. And I thought, I was terrified I'd get diarrhea, and that would just drain me of strength. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to eat. So the third thing was hygiene. I thought, I went back into the bathroom, there was no toilet paper. I thought, how am I going to stay clean with no toilet paper? So I went to the nurse's station and asked for toilet paper in my broken Spanish, and they said no, they don't provide that. That's for the families to provide, the support system, they're supposed to provide your toilet paper. So I went back to my bed, not quite knowing what I was going to do, and I was about to take my library book and start ripping out pages, and the woman in the bed next to me with the cold, she offered me her toilet paper, and I decided that risk was probably okay to take her toilet paper. If I got her cold, there was a long enough incubation period. So that was the hygiene part. Then I decided I needed to become visible to the nurses. I didn't want to become, you know, just this monster. And so I would try to communicate with them. One nurse was named Ruth, and my favorite aunt was Ruth, so I tried to tell her about my favorite aunt, asked them about their children. Whenever they brought in 3M products, I'd say, I work for 3M, and a lot of pantomiming. But they seemed to like me, and they actually, one nurse brought me a piece of candy, so I thought, okay, maybe I succeeded. So, and then the fifth thing I did, and this is, I'm not a very religious person normally, but when you get put in one of these situations, you learn religion a little more. So I had once been told that if you say the 23rd Psalm 23 times, then God will really listen to you. So, and I had memorized it in middle school, so I counted off my fingers and said the 3rd Psalm 23 times. And I went to sleep. And when I woke at about 3 a.m., I was engulfed in a cocoon, and I just could feel that I was being loved. It was an incredible experience. And I went back to sleep, and that next day, Anna had made the trip to see me. Pablo was staying nearby, but Anna had made the trip, the 2-hour drive to the hospital to see me. But only one visitor was allowed, so Anna pretended she couldn't speak English, so that and said she had to have Pablo because he was her interpreter. She could speak wonderful English, but she pretended. But they came in and saw me, and they told me I looked beautiful. And I looked like a monster, but they told me I looked beautiful. And so finally, I'm starting to think like, okay, maybe I can eat something. So, and they'd been having nutritionists come in Spanish try to get me to eat something, and I would just refused everything. So finally I thought, okay, I'll eat. It's been 5 days since I ate last time, so I will eat. So they bring me food, and I ate 2 bites, and the next thing you know, one neurosurgeon comes and says, oh, we got to get that tube out of your head. So he grabs this tube, and he goes, and it goes thump, and the tube came out of my head, and I couldn't eat anymore. So I just laid down and went back to sleep. So anyways, so then the next day, the neurosurgeon told me, I could be let out tomorrow. We had to stay in the hotel. We should stay in the hotel next to the airport, and he would come and do a house call and check on me before I flew home. So I'm checked out. My husband and I are in the room, and Pete, my husband's name is Pete. He thought I had hit some kind of button that made the bed vibrate because the bed was shaking. And we looked around, and the lamps were shaking. And we went to the window, and we looked out, and there were waves in the pool. Of course, it was an earthquake, and it was 6.6 on the Richter scale. And within 5 minutes, Anna called me and said, Carol, are you all right? So anyways, that night the neurosurgeon did come to our hotel room and check me out. And so now I'm going to show you some pictures. That's sort of, I flew home, that's sort of the end of that story, of that adventure. But here's some stories. This is what I looked like in the hospital, at the end of the hospital. You can see this is when my eyes are both open. So this is when I was looking good. And you can see the window in the back, that foot-wide window behind me. And this is, what they did was they cut my head open from here all the way back to the back of my ear, peeled it back, and then cut out a section like this. And they told me they used the good stuff, so then they put, pardon me? So these little tabs you see, they said they used titanium, so they were the good stuff. This is me just smiling. This is Anna and Pablo. They came and had lunch with us on the last day we were there. These angels of mine. And this is Pablo. He went back to the watering hole and went back into the woods and found the rock. And he said he knew it was the rock. Well, one thing, he saw it when it hit me, but also he said there was blood all over it, so he knew that was it. And so anyways, this is my daughter who was on the trip, and she went on with the group, and she said all the other parents adopted her. They went to a farmer's market, and all the parents would pull her aside and give her a little money so she'd have something to spend. So several parents gave her money. But these were really cool plants. The water would go into them, and then you'd squeeze them up, and water would come out and wash your hands. So they were just kind of cool. Oh, and also my son's 21st birthday passed, and when I got home, I couldn't have a drink. So I finally took him out for a drink about 1.5 years after his 21st birthday. So, lessons learned. Just never give up. I mean, I really didn't expect to survive. I'm very lucky to be alive. Focus on what's important. Know you can make a difference in the outcome. So if I hadn't fought, I don't think I would have survived. I think I had to focus on that I had to trust people, and I just had to let go and say, I'm going to have to trust them. Think about survival and take responsibility for your own safety. Finally, the ultimate in service means caring about someone as a person and a friend. These were all service providers, the drivers of the trucks, the teachers, Pablo and Anna, the innkeepers basically, the nurse, they're all service providers, and they just really took care of me. And then just a thought. When mind is backed by will, miracles happen. And this was all a miracle that I survived and am able to walk and talk and be fairly normal. So there's my story. Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Are you feeling okay?
Just nervous. Otherwise, I'm fine.
Questions for Carol?
Are you still in contact with Pablo and Anna?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I send them a Christmas card every year, and well, right now we're just doing email, but yeah, we write back and forth. Yeah, I've wanted to go back and see them again. I haven't done that yet.
Have you ever gone back?
No, I want to. I'd like to go back and see them and actually go back to the watering hole. I think that my therapist, because I went through therapy, they said, you'll have PTSD, you got to really think about it. So I'll have to see. But I'd like to go back and see them.
Interesting.
So another thing I thought I'd mention was after the whole incident was over, the national park went and did a hazard review, and I wrote this story up when it was still fresh in my mind, and they went out and they purchased helmets for hikers. They're planning to have one person climb at a time. They purchased a high-tech, lightweight carbon fiber stretcher that could be used in an emergency. So they did a hazard review as a result of my situation. I'm really pleased about that. Hopefully prevented another incident with somebody else.
Other questions?
How long before Pete got there?
He got there on the day I was checked out of the hospital, and I was telling, Pablo would give me his phone every time I'd see him, and I was telling Pete, stay home, Katie needs somebody there when she gets home, so stay there until Katie gets home, because she went on with the group. They went to Nicaragua, and then she flew home, and he stayed at home. And meanwhile, I know he was asked, my boss at 3M was looking into getting a company jet to fly down and get me, but we couldn't predict when that would be, so that didn't happen. So Pete didn't get down there till Tuesday, I think it was. The accident happened on Wednesday, and he came down on the following Tuesday, and we flew back on Thursday.
Did he bring toilet paper?
Oh, well, when Anna and Pablo came to visit me, they immediately said, what do you need? And I said, toilet paper. And so Pablo immediately ran out to get toilet paper and brought back toilet paper and then a bunch of bottled water for me. So they were just, unbelievable, wonderful people. So.
How long before you got your vision back, your total vision?
Actually, when I checked out of the hospital, both eyes, I had my vision back. But what was really interesting was when the accident happened, the roof of my mouth came down on my tongue. And and nobody ever checked my mouth. They were always looking at my head, and I should have said something to them. But when I later said to them, in later follow-up checkups, I said, well, what about, my mouth coming down on, and the doctor said, no, that couldn't have happened. You would be dead if that happened. So I know it happened. It happened. So, yeah. So, but I mean, you can see my eye was, red, bloodshot. And so, yeah. Anybody else?
Other questions?
Okay.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Jean.
What a story.